Being able to defend yourself is not always about fighting physically. I'd say most times it's not. There's many other aspects to self-defense, and I try to focus on those on my channel as well. In this video, I want to talk about how to deal with controlling people. Stick around. Truth be told, it's not very hard to end up dealing with a controlling person in your life. There are personalities out here that are always looking for others to control. It happens every day. This could be anyone. It could be somebody you're working with. It could be a family member. It could be a friend. It could literally be anyone. It's not usually something that happens overnight either. It's something that gradually takes place in the relationship over time. Controlling behavior can look like a number of things. You could be constantly finding yourself being put in positions where you're being forced to do something you don't want to do. You could be having to listen to certain opinions all the time. You could find yourself on a rat race, on a hamster wheel because of the actions or words of a certain individual. There's so many ways that being controlled can play out. But you know what? I could list example after example, but if you're watching this video and you feel like you're being controlled by someone, or if you've ever been controlled by someone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It could be physical abuse from that individual. The first thing you're going to have to do is make a very difficult choice. And that is the choice between choosing to confront this individual or choosing to continue being controlled by them. More often than not, when we feel like we're being controlled by someone, it's not somebody we consider a mortal enemy, some random assailant on the street. It's somebody we've been doing life with, walking alongside for a while. Sadly, we often fear the consequence or what the response of this individual may be more than we do the toil of being controlled over time. Young people, for example, are afraid to confront their peers because they're afraid their peers will never hang out with them anymore. But something I tell my children is this: if you can't share heartfelt words with somebody without them losing it and going nuts, you never had them to begin with. Confrontation allows you to discover who your people really are. And I believe lack of confrontation is the number one reason why people continue to be controlled. So again, it comes down to a choice. You can choose to go on being controlled and being forced into things against your will all the time, or you can take your stand and choose to confront regardless of the consequences. There's going to be consequences either way. But I've always believed the consequences of hitting something head on far outweigh the consequences of being a prisoner. And if that individual that you're confronting doesn't respect you enough to hear what you have to say and to consider their ways, you do not need them in your life. The second thing to consider is how to confront an individual, because controlling people operate on different levels. A lot of times it comes down to just learning how to disagree with these individuals, stopping them dead in their tracks. Instead of sitting there and listening to their babble that continues to lead you in the same direction it always has, learn to just disagree in the moment. Start pushing back. Say things like, I don't really agree with that. I have a different opinion on that. Start pushing back little by little. You'd be surprised the response you'll get. Sometimes people who are very aggressive and controlling, if they get the slightest bit of confrontation, man, it's like they slam on the brakes. Everybody's different, but I've seen this. You've got to start sending out these subtle cues that people can't just push you in any direction. This is how relationships where there's mutual respect operate. We're not just here to serve the interest of other people. We've got to have an opinion of our own. We got to have values and boundaries of our own. And as tough as this may sound, there's no ABC 1, 2, 3 to this. If you don't value your own boundaries, your values, and your opinion enough to take some steps toward defending those things, you're going to be controlled your whole life anyway. Again, it goes back to the fear of what confronting these people may involve. Sometimes it may start with a little disagreement in conversation. It may be choosing to have that argument, choosing to have that falling out. Could be an email. Could be a simple text message, but you got to start taking some steps toward creating some opposition for this individual so they don't feel like you're such an easy target all the time. I'm not going to paint everybody out to be the devil. You'd be surprised how much the situation can turn around with a little bit of confrontation. A lot of these people will respect you for doing that. Some won't, but a lot will. And the sooner you confront somebody that you detect as being controlling, the easier it's going to be to establish those boundaries with that individual. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. The next thing that I will tell you is don't be afraid to get help if the situation's bad enough, especially if there's physical abuse involved. Some confrontation is going to require the assistance of others. Your gut will tell you when that is. Sometimes this looks like a family intervention where a group of people are confronting one individual because that one individual has wreaked havoc in the family. Sometimes it may be making a phone call about an abusive spouse. The list goes on, but there's times where your confrontation of an individual may need to be accompanied by others. This video is about a choice, because once you make that choice, you're taking the right steps. And that choice is the decision to confront instead of deciding to let things keep going on the way they are out of certain fears. Choosing to confront someone may be the end of a friendship. Let it be the end. If you can't confront someone and tell them how you feel, they're not your friend. Family doesn't have the right to abuse you just because you're family. Yes, there's pain in confrontation, but I think there's greater pain in failing to confront. So number one, make the choice to confront them. It's time to put on the brakes. Number two, figure out how you're going to confront them. What level are you at? Is the situation bad? Is it not that bad? Maybe it's a simple conversation. Maybe it's an email. Maybe it's a text. Break ground and make the confrontation get started. And number three, don't feel bad about recognizing the fact that confronting someone else may need to involve another person. You know, it's not always you versus them. Sometimes the situation is so bad, you're going to have to ask for some assistance. Just don't remain a prisoner to the person that is controlling you. I don't care what level this is. That is a decision you have to make. Have you ever been in this situation? How did you see your way through it? I'd love to hear from you. Take care.